What will be your legacy is really the question. And I don't know if there's a better way. I personally have not found a better way to become a better man than challenging myself to lead better men. It challenged me to look at every crack and cranny of my life.
Welcome to the Man Maker Show. This is where weak excuses die and men of all ages are held accountable to rise stronger, bolder, and fearless. Grit, ambition, and authenticity are not optional. They are the price you pay to become the man you are meant to be. If you are ready to face the fire, take charge, and own your future, then your journey starts here. And now your host, Brad Wolgamott.
Welcome back to the Man Maker Show. B-Rad coming to you once again. Hope you're doing awesome. Hope life has been a trap. Lots going on, lots to talk about. Hope you've had a great week. I hope you're winning. I hope you're undefeated. I hope you're setting big goals. I hope you're focused on becoming a better human being, a better son, a better dad, a better father, a better friend, a better bro. That's what the Man Maker Show is all about. We are making men. We are anti-demasculation of men. We're against the concept of this toxic masculinity that seems to be running around. And I really believe, as I mentioned way back in the early days of the show, in a lot of ways, those brands are founded, but they're founded on a select number of broken men that have been through so much pain in their life that they spend most of their life committing pain for others. And if you stand with me in the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk a lot about the genesis of pain, the genesis of poor behavior, why we choose to do the things we do. I'm wrapping up today a series on building your core men around you. We talk about not focusing on winning the crowd, but on building a team of men around you. You've got your critical three. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The person in your life that will be your faithful wounder, your truth teller, the person that will give it to you straight, the person knows you well enough when you've wandered off a bit, when you've violated some code or rules, or you're stepping out a little too far. They'll tell you the truth when you've had too many beers. They'll tell you the truth when you told a crude joke. They'll tell you the truth when you're disrespectful to your spouse. They'll tell you the truth when you're saying something that's either BS or you're not doing it yourself. We're going to talk about how to really develop these relationships. So you've got that person in your life. And if you don't have one, you need one. Because who else is going to call you out on your stuff? If we walk through life and we do not have somebody holding us accountable, we are screwed. We need someone that has the courage and strength and love and conviction in our life well enough to help get us on track. The second person you need is that vault, that person in your life that you know can handle the truth, right? You can't handle the truth. Well, that's not your fault. Okay, they quote Jack Nicholson. The truth of the matter is you need someone that knows your pain, that knows your struggles, that knows your failures, and that as you're struggling with particular things in life, you can sit down with them and you can talk about it and realize it stays right there. I mean, how healing, how comforting is it to have someone that you can just tell your crap to, that's strong enough to not be weighted down by the burden of your failure, strong enough to sit with you and say, I know that's not you. I don't exactly know why you've made those choices, but I do know who you are. And I know that if we can get back to the truth of our identity and who man you are, you will not repeat those things. We need a confidant in our life that we can sit with. And then we need that third person, that ride or die bro, that person that 4 o'clock in the morning, man, they're in trouble. They call you, boom, you ride or die, right? You can call them at 3 or 4 and they'll call you at 3 or 4. I'm feeling very excited about my life right now where I'm developing a couple of these friendships very intentionally. And it is so hopeful for me to have men in my life that could help me, right? And I don't know about you, but I got a lot of pride in my life, and I don't need anybody's help, right? But I'm realizing I do. I need to surround myself with men that will hold me accountable. I need to surround myself with men that I can talk through my crap. I need to surround myself with some men that'll be with me no matter where it goes, how it goes. They're not going to violate man's laws or God's laws, but they're going to be with me to help me get back on track. Then we talked about your palm six, right? Your palm bearers, if you will. And I won't go into as much depth in that, but you can go back and listen to last episode. But you got that crew of six. Those men in your life that they're going to preach your last silent sermon. You're gone. They're carrying your casket, but they will carry the message of your life. And I think that that's what leads me to this third group. And this is a different kind of group. Some people would call these your 12 apostles. Jesus had 12 apostles / 12 disciples. There are 12 tribes of Israel. There's a lot of 12s if you go out and look. And I'm a Seahawk fan, the 12th man. I'm talking about your legacy 12, or sometimes referred to as the 12. These are the men in your life that you are choosing to mentor. Now, why do they need to be men? Because I think it's safer. Mentoring women is a dangerous model because you are going to get connected, a soul tie in a way, by having very intimate conversations about life that are going to be inappropriate if you're in a relationship or they're in a relationship. And if you're not in a relationship and they're not in a relationship, you're going to end up in a relationship with that person. And unless you intend to make that a full-time, long-term deal, I don't recommend it. It's too deep, it's too heavy. So I think these are men. You're 12. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why you need to have these 12. I'm going to talk a little about the traits of these 12. I'm going to talk about how to select these 12. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what do we do with this? How do we flesh this out? How do we make this happen? I think there are a lot of people that are consumers. But if I said that to them, they would say, no, I'm not. No, all I do is serve people. All I do is care for people. All I do is do stuff for people. And I would argue that if you're not in covenant relationship to develop another human being, that you are a consumer. And please don't be offended by that. I want to challenge you to take on some men in your life that you're going to mentor. I'm going to challenge you to help men grow beyond your point. I'm going to talk about 5 reasons. I'll hit them fairly quick. Why I think there's a case for this. Number 1, there's something that happens inside the soul of a man when we are committed to teaching men to stand on our shoulders and go to land we hadn't been to. There's something about being a great coach. In fact, I've heard it said that a great coach, isn't defined by what they accomplish, but by what those they mentored accomplish. One of the great coaches of football was Coach Bill Walsh of the San Francisco 49ers, multiple Super Bowls, and he has a legacy of his own. But if you look at the number of coaches that are in the NFL or that have coached in the NFL since him under his mentorship, it is ridiculous. Shanahan, another massive legacy, all the way down to his son and people he's mentored. I think the real symbol of a man's achievements in life is not what they consume, it's what they extend. It's the men they impact and the impact of their life. That's me. But I believe it's worth considering taking your talents, taking your pain, taking your victories, and sitting with someone and say, let me help you do better than me. Now, we're going to talk about selection process, because if you've made a lot of money, everybody wants that. But people have to earn this. And very few people will work hard enough to earn mentorship. They're all entitled, thinking, well, gosh, you've got everything, I've got nothing. Why wouldn't you teach me? Because I love my family. And the only way I'm going to spend time mentoring someone is if there's a greater return to my family. In other words, my family is better. I'm a better father. There's a legacy for my family. If it makes sense to my family, then I will take time away from my family to mentor the 12. And I've mentored a lot of people in my life to the tune of hundreds, probably thousands indirectly, maybe tens of thousands. I also have failed in my life to a point where a lot of those people thought, man, what the heck happened to that guy, right? That's all available on the internet. What happened to him? Oh, man, his marriage fell apart. He was an idiot. Agreed. Was. Was is the key word. And I can either let that failure define me and be the story that is told about my life, or I could get back up, change what's going on in my life, repent, change direction, change the way I think, so I change the way I act, and create a new Legacy 12. And this is one of the reasons I do this channel. So the second reason why I think it's important is the family generational impact. If the last story my children hear is of my failure, then my life was a fail. But if I can do enough things in the final seasons of my life, in the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however many God allows me to live, he might only give me 20 more years. I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 5. I could be dead tomorrow, but not likely. Not saying that. I'm just saying that I want the final story of my life of generational impact, that the things I teach my kid, right? I was thinking the other day about our kids are always watching us. When I was in the Philippines building projects, I can remember sharing a family video, and it was my kids playing ping pong and playing downstairs. And I was shocked how many times my kids would see me or look at me in the video. Like it was a major focus of life is what was dad thinking, what was dad saying. And I thought about a buddy of mine who has children and basically refuses to eat green vegetables. And I'm like, why? I don't like them. So my mom didn't make me eat them. So now there's kids growing up, and guess what? They probably won't eat green vegetables either. Or they've also learned that they can be picky amongst what their mom eats because, well, dad doesn't like green, so I could not like red. I could not like meat. I could not like this. And to me, it's incredibly disrespectful to the provider of the food. And yet you're thinking, well, it's just my thing. I don't eat it. I suggest you suck it up and overcome that unless you're deathly allergic to it and stop being a baby and eat the green dang vegetables so your kids know to respect mom and the meal provided over your little childish behavior of, well, I just don't do that. Now, I just pissed off a bunch of you, but maybe a bunch of you are like, right on, bro. Freaking preach it. That's the truth, because that is the truth. And I cannot believe how many adults say the dumbest things about what I won't eat because their mommy babied them and wouldn't force them to eat the food they were making for them. And I can't believe how many parents will let their children boss them around on what they will and won't eat. There's food there. You can either eat that food or you can go to bed hungry, but we're not making a special meal for you because you're in a certain mood. What are you teaching your child about the real world if you live that way? I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent, but I'm talking about creating a legacy. So all these things are played into it because little eyes are always watching. The third part of it, and again, it applies in the family, but the reason I want to have a Legacy 12 is because I want to create momentum for my kids. I want to create momentum for anybody who falls behind me. And if there are 12 disciples, 12 men that I have poured my life into, that are living a better life because of the investment I made in them. Not that I'm all that, and don't get all weird on me. I'm just saying commit to helping 12 men, and that creates a momentum for your family as they move into their own businesses. The fourth benefit I believe we get is it forces us to live differently. When I realized how much my kids were watching me, it radically transformed my behavior when I was around my kids. I was aware that they're watching me if I roll my eyes. They're watching me if I'm short with their mom. They're watching me if I'm disrespectful. And now I have this amazing daughter who just calls me up, Mom, Dad, you're not being nice to Mom. And I'm like, you're right. Sometimes my brother, I'm like, you're none of your business. We're having an argument. But she's right. And there's never, ever an excuse to be disrespectful to my wife, let alone in front of my child. So by deciding to mentor 12 that are watching the way I live, it forces me to live differently. And the fifth reason, which I think may be the biggest of them all, I don't know, but it forces you to learn, to listen, to study, to be humble, to add value, to grow and lead others. I will promise you, the person that's gotten the most benefit out of the Man Maker show is Brad Wolgamott. I will guarantee you that. The hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of study and preparation for a 20, 25, 30-minute episode. Well, let me put it this way. I don't put hundreds in every episodes, but I've done close to 50 episodes. So I guarantee you it's in the hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of hours to prepare for message. That benefits me. That makes me a better man. That makes me wiser. Not that you could give a rat's butt. My point is to translate that to you. You deciding to mentor other men will force you to study and advance yourself so you can add something of value. You will not disciple 12 if you're regurgitating a bunch of ding-dong stuff. If you spend all of your time talking about people, if you spend all your time talking about events. Remember, small minds talk about people. Medium minds talk about events. Great minds talk about ideas. And if you're going to lead men, you need to talk about ideas. We need to expand ourselves. So if I'm going to build a great idea and I've got a couple big visions in my life right now, I need to surround myself with men that share the same value system. And this is how you're going to begin to select your process of your 12. The first thing you're going to look for is their character. Character being defined by things you do and think about when no one knows you're doing and thinking about. Let that soak in for a second. That's your private, quiet, dark room time. That's when everybody's gone and you got 3 hours to blow. What do? Some people it's not so good. Some people it's really good. But what do? They say idle time is evil time. Why? Because your character takes over. And if your character isn't solved, then guess what? Neither is your behavior. So when you're determining who these men are going to be, look for men of character. Now, sometimes you're going to find men with broken character, but they harness other things, other characteristics of humility and things I'll talk about in a minute. They say, I'm going to take a flyer on you. I'm going to take a chance on you. I don't think you're the man of character I'm looking for, but I think I see the potential. You just haven't been mentored yet. So the second thing I look for, in my opinion, is faith. I look for people that walk with faith. What is that? Faith is not just a religious thing. Faith means I'm going to take action as though things will go the way I want. I don't know. Nobody knows the future. Nobody knows how things go. And so since we don't know how things are going to go, why don't I just have the faith that it's going to go well? Well, how do you know? I don't know. But I don't know it's going to go bad. Would you just assume I just guess then at the failure? Or is it better to guess at the success? I'm looking for people that are optimistic, that have a faith that things are going to work out. And as a man of faith, I believe that God's got a great plan for my life. And even when things don't go the way I want them to go, they're going to go the way he wants them to go. And that's the best way for them to go. So I can accept a plan outside of mine because I have faith in a greater God's plan. For those who don't share the same faith, do you have faith that if you at least try and work at things, you will learn something, you will advance? You may not get right to your target, but at least you're moving. If you ever watch the sailboat, they never go right at their target. They go tacking and they come about and they jibe and tack and jibe and tack and jibe until what? They eventually get there. Rarely do they pull out the spinnaker and hit straight down the line. Hardly ever. It's always moving left and right. That's what happens when you have some faith. The third characteristic I think you have to look for is a man with vision, right? There are a lot of people that lack vision, and I believe it's one of the reasons they suffer from depression. It's one of the reasons they suffer from laziness. That's why they suffer from low energy. It's because they don't have a vision. There's a proverb that says, man without vision shall perish. Now, perish is an interesting word because it's kind of like slow death. It's kind of like rotting, perishables, right? What happens when a banana perishes, right? It just kind of turns brown and then it gets all mucky and then you open it up and you're like, what's on the inside is worse than what's on the outside. Oh my God. And once one perishes, it's because they began to rot in their soul. They've lost hope. They've lost fire. They've lost fight. They just think that it just doesn't work. It's not fair. There's no opportunity here. And I live in a small town and it's just hard here. And the weather's cold and then it's hot in the summer and it's just really hard to get. Well, duh. It's always going to be hard. I want it to be hard. I want it to be difficult. I want it to be challenged. Why? Because that's what makes me better. And how in the frick am I ever going to motivate and influence and lead and direct 12 men if I can't handle hard? So you need to have some vision because it's the vision that'll keep you going when everything else around you says, I don't think this is going to work. I don't know, buddy. You might be wasting your time. Vision is what will sustain you when the winds are blowing so hard, you think you're going backwards. The fourth characteristic I look for is someone that has leadership influence. They say that the transfer word for leadership is influence. In other words, leadership is influence. And when I'm looking for leadership, I'm looking for someone that can make some influence. I'm looking for a one percenter, right? I'm looking for the Navy SEAL. I'm looking for the business owner. I'm looking for the dude that's went out there and grinded and failed and dealt with adversity and failure and embarrassment, family stuff. I'm looking for the dude that has been kicked in the teeth so many times, they should be down. But they're not only down, they're smoking life. They're crushing it. Because they know that through all this pain, they've learned what not to do is as important as learning what to do. And so as a result, they walk in an influence because they're tough enough. They've got stories, right? There's nothing more influential than the stories. That's what inspires us all. If you think about, there's an old Indian proverb, and the proverb goes something like this. An East Indian friend told me this story. So I think when I say Indians, I'm referring to East Indians, but it doesn't really matter. 12 dogs chasing a rabbit. Right? Eventually he loses all of them but one. There's only one dog left chasing it. All of a sudden the rabbit goes down the hole. What does the one dog do? He starts barking and digging and barking and digging. And next thing you know, there's the 2 dogs, and there's the 4 dogs, then there's the 12 dogs, and then there could be 20, 30 dogs, and they're all like digging and digging and digging and digging, and they're all going, what are we digging for? What's going on here? He goes, the rabbit went down here. And eventually guys in the back say, well, did you see the rabbit? No. You didn't see it on the hole? No. Then how you know it's on the hole? Well, I heard. And so they begin to peel off. One by one by one. There's 15, there's 12, there's 10, there's 8, there's 5, there's 3. There's the critical 3 for the one, but ultimately, a long enough time, there's going to be one dog left. And guess who that dog is? The one that saw it go down the hole. He knows it's there. This is the story of Jesus. Bear with me even if you don't believe. Christ had 12 disciples. We know the story. There's no doubting whether he walked on the earth. There's way too much evidence that demands a verdict that Jesus was in fact a man. And he walked on the earth and he said, I am the Son of God. I am. I am the Savior. I have come to set the captives free. I have come to release the prisoners. He said that he was the atonement for all sin. Now, he taught for 3 years, and you've heard the stories as much as I have, and there's some miracles and the Sermon on the Mount and the feeding the multitudes, and it goes on and on. I mean, just an incredible story, right? But a lot of people say, well, he was just a good man, just a good teacher. Well, I would argue that 12 men became 11. Christ was crucified. 3 days later, it is said, at which I believe, he raised from the dead. The 11 that ran for their life and were scared every moment that they were going to be crucified or murdered that night, even those closest to him denied him 3 times before the crow. You've heard the story. Every one of them ended up dying tragic deaths many, many, many years later. Not one of them flipped on their conviction, yet all of them were prepared to be flipped the night he got arrested, hiding, knowing they were going to be captured and murdered as well. What happened to the 11 between scared, running for your life, and willing to preach the gospel of Jesus to the corners of the world to create one of the greatest religious movements of all time? What do you think it was? They saw Christ after death. They saw him die, and they saw him live. They saw the dog go down the hole. There's something about the influence of your story, of those that went with you through the pain. And so the last characteristic that I look for, in my opinion, is someone that loves people. And I believe they should love God and they love others. You choose how you're gonna pick that, but I don't think you're gonna have somebody that is willing to go the distance and mentoring others if they don't love people. Would you agree? I just don't think they will. And if we're going to multiply, we have to lead leaders. If we want to grow, you lead followers. I don't know about you, but I've thought, maybe this is a selfish thing to think, but I've been to the Nordstrom's wing at the hospital. I've been to the Lou Gehrig Center. I've been to the Mayo Clinic. I haven't been there. I've read about it. I've been to the Johns Hopkins. I've been to is it Fred Hopkins in Seattle? You know who these people are? They were men. They were human beings that did such a great thing that they created medical facilities that have saved thousands and thousands of lives. I've been to Hilton hotels and seen the Hiltons on the mantle above the desk. This may sound arrogant, but I would like to know that my life mattered to a point where it was my picture that was on the mantle. That sounds self-serving. I don't mean it in a narcissistic way. I would like my children to know that Brad Wolgamott served God, served people, served his family till his dying breath, and that this podcast is a living testimony to my commitment to putting enough word out there that even though they may have never listened to one of these, if someday in the future they want to know how their daddy thought, they can pull up a podcast and know exactly how I thought. I don't know about you, but I want to set the mantle. My story is horrific, and yet it's a story of recovery. Well, I don't want to just teach information. I want to shape transformation. And that's what I want you to buy into. I don't want you to just teach what you know. I want you to shape people into what they are, right? We teach what we know, but we release what's inside of us. And if we haven't done the inside work, we teach all the stuff, but inside it says jerk. It says ass. It says mean. It says things that no one wants to be around the jerk, even I don't care how much money you've made. You teach what you know, but you release what you are. So we want to change the inside. So I want to help you to be intentional with these men. I want to teach you to be relational with these men. And I want to teach you to be reproducible with these men. In other words, be real. You're not perfect. You're not trying to be Jesus, okay? You're trying to be the best example you can be, but be intentional, be relatable, and be reproducible. Recognize that, hey, man, we're not perfect. That's not the goal. What's the old saying? Perfectionism of the world, but kingdom excellence is of the kingdom. So perfectionism is the pressure of the world, which nobody can do. Excellence of the heart is from the kingdom, and that's what we're focusing on. That's what I'm talking about. Creating this generational impact by choosing to lead 12. So the selection process is simple. First of all, you look for consistency. You look for people who have shown you over time that they are faithfully committed to being a better human being. The second thing, they make time. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to build friends like, oh, man, the calendar's full. I don't have time. I was with some guys just the other day, and we're talking about, oh, let's make some time to golf. And it's like, oh, I'm a little busy. I got this, I got that. And he goes, but you know what? I decided this. If I don't just make time, there won't be time. So let's book something so I have time. That's the kind of person that you're looking for to mentor. Someone says, I will make time. Third thing, someone that's humble. Someone that's teachable, someone that you can connect with. What does humble mean? It doesn't mean quiet and meek. It means fertile soil. It means that you can sow into them and something grows out of that creates fruit or shade or production for others. Humility means coachable. And then that last part of that is that you know that they're multipliable, right? In other words, would somebody follow them? Are they willing to mentor others? Are they going to get around you just so they can get a lot? Are they going to get around you just so they can be cool because they're with you? Or are they genuinely around you because they want to become a better human so that they can add value to others and make the world a better place? What will be your legacy is really the question. And I don't know if there's a better way. I personally have not found a better way to become a better man than challenging myself to lead better men. It challenged me to look at every crack and cranny of my life. I'm going to come, there's a series coming out soon on captives and prisoners on why do we make stupid mistakes, and when we know they're wrong, why do we do it? It's the same thing that Paul talked about in Romans. Why do I do what I know I shouldn't do when I know what I should do? Why do I do it? What's the battle? And we're going to break it down into great depth. But I guess the question is who's going to tell your story? Who's going to create generational momentum because they love you, because they know you've poured into them, because they know you've been committed to impact in their life. When you're gone, we won't talk about the day you're born, the day you died. We're going to talk about the dash. We're going to talk about the men you influenced, the women you influenced, the life you led, the children you raised, the causes you started. And I would hope to God the Palm 6 will be there. I'm sure they will. And the 12 that you discipled will all call and say, may I please say something? Because this man changed my life. Because you intentionally, relationally, reproductively built these men. You decided with intention to create deep relationship so that they could reproduce the story and the message of your life. You're a good man. You can become a great man. And I think one of the best tools to do that is to challenge yourself to select 12. You may rotate a few in and out, but to select your 12 and make the investment in becoming a better person so you can impart and release into them that which is pouring into you through your own studies. Critical 3, Palm 6, your 12, Legacy 12. 12 apostles, 12 disciples, simply put, the 12. And that's what we're after. Bradley Wolgamott, man maker, committed to helping you be better, bolder, stronger, and a man of more impact. God bless you. See you soon. Man maker out.